Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Fortified Life podcast, where we are passionate about developing a dependency on Jesus and the marketplace. I'm your host, Jason Davis, aka Mr. Fortify. Every week, we have the opportunity to bring on authors, speakers, coaches, CEOs, leaders of nonprofits, hint, hint, that are also passionate about putting God back in business, and it is no different this week. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very excited. I was just talking with this individual offline, and there's so many connection points. It'd probably take us at least a week to get through everything. But our guest today is John Shackelford, and he's the executive director at Eagle Ranch. John, welcome to the Fortified Life podcast.
Thank you so much, Jason. Honored to be here, man.
Yes. Well, John, we know that you just don't wake up and be an executive director at a nonprofit. So kind of take us on the journey of how you got here professionally and kind of how God moved through that.
Yeah, so it's really it's an amazing story that I am always grateful to get to tell and reflect on. So backing up a little bit, so my wife and I lived in downtown Atlanta. We were raising our kids, and I was working at Chick-fil-A's corporate office for 10 years. The pleasure of getting to work there, and it was an amazing experience. And the whole time, God kept whispering that there was going to be a day where He would lead us and lead me out of Chick-fil-A and probably out of the city. But as God does, He doesn't give you a lot of details a lot of times. And I also, my wife and I are both like, we don't want to leave the city. Like this is all great. I don't want to leave Chick-fil-A. And so ultimately, it took 10 years and had 10 years of amazing memories and experiences. But ultimately was introduced to the founder of Eagle Ranch, who I had known nothing about Eagle Ranch, had heard the name in passing. But Eddie Staub was the founder of Eagle Ranch, and he founded the ranch in 1985 as a ministry for children and families here in North Georgia. And he wanted to make sure that his successor was something that was very intentionally planned, and which is
Mm.
also super rare, as you I'm sure know. It's hard. It's hard to think through that. It's hard to have the humility and courage to step into that. But I was introduced to him by the person who had hired me at Chick-fil-A back in 2010, guy by the name of David Salyers. And unbeknownst to me, David was the very first board member at Eagle Ranch in 1985. And so
Wow.
Eddie and David were good friends. They were catching up and reconnecting when Eddie and the board were in the midst of the search process. And David just felt prompted when he heard where they were and who they were looking for that I was the guy. And keep in mind, I was 31 years old at the time. And David had not talked to me about bringing my name up. Um, but I don't think I know Eddie and the board were not particularly thinking that the next leader would be of my age and stage of life. But as God would have it, to keep a long story not quite as long, it was in a just an amazing season of discernment and God's revealing to my wife and I and to Eagle Ranch. This was where He had for us. So in May of 21, we left the city. I left Chick-fil-A and we sold our home and moved up here and now live on the campus of Eagle Ranch alongside many of our colleagues, getting to do this incredible work.
John, that is powerful, man. There's so many cool moments and a lot of wisdom in what you shared. There's transition, there's
Hmm.
succession planning, there's discernment, and I can't help but think about like Abraham, who gets called out of
Yeah.
away from the family and out of his homeland into an area that God
Mm.
was taking him. I'm just curious with your experience at Chick-fil-A. Sometimes we don't immediately recognize this, but how was that a training ground for
Mm.
you taking over at Eagle Ranch?
Oh, yeah. I know it's one of those things, as you said, that when you're in the midst of it, you're like, this is like not the logical progression of a career. And I remember really wrestling in my spirit at some level. I'm like, man, if this doesn't work out, like if this ministry is not what I hope it is, if this, I mean, this is a very dangerous career move. Like, now, thankfully, I feel like I had some assurances from folks from Chick-fil-A being like, hey, if something doesn't go well up there, like, you can come back. But you're always like, once you kind of cut that off, you're like, I mean, I don't know it's kind of like not, it's a little bit of this idea of like either we're doing it or we're not doing it.
Hmm.
We're not stepping into this like putting our toe in the water. It's like we have to go all in as a family. But we just had a piece that it wasn't our idea. God was calling us, so we did. But in terms of your questions and the preparation, oh, there was so much. I mean, I like Chick-fil-A was the ideal training ground because I mean I was hired right out of college, and so I learned business from, I would argue, the best, like people who had a gospel-centered lens around what business is all about. I mean, things like, the idea of closing a business on closing a restaurant business on Sundays, like not just because they're like, oh, well, the Bible, says to take a Sabbath rest. Like, no, actually believing that this is actually what's best for all of us and best for the physical environment. Like, God designed the world to operate on rhythms and not maximizing productivity at all times. Like, even just learning things like that, that just I absorbed into my own life, that because of the just faithful men and women that I was under. And then the opportunity, I mean, the things I got to lead and experience in those 10 years. I mean, I kept wondering and considering, like when I was at Chick-fil-A, about whether I should leave for a season time to go get my MBA.
Hmm.
And every time I would consider it, I was like, if I miss out on like even just a year, if I have found some like
Mm.
accelerated program, I'm like, I would be missing out on, I think, way more than I'd be learning in an MBA program. I'm like, I am getting this as, Chick-fil-A was going. I mean, I got to be part of watching Chick-fil-A's sponsorship portfolio go from a $3 million annual spend to over 40, like during the course of my time, like, which was like, getting to see Chick-fil-A still seeing stuff as a regional Southeastern brand in 2010 to saying, no, we're like a national, and even by the time I left, like international brand. So I just got to learn so much. But the main thing was the people and the culture and the way of doing business that saw no conflict between the good news of the gospel and biblical principles and how to operate a business. And so brought that with me into what thankfully at Eagle Ranch was already a culture that believed that and had lived that out for 40 years. And so it was made for a remarkably seamless transition, despite the fact that it's two very different business environments. So yeah, such a blessing in terms of in all of those ways.
Mm. I heard the David Salyer shout out too. That's a good book, Remarkable. That's a
Yes, yes.
pretty
He's
good
a
one.
good man.
John, one question I wanted to ask you too is it seems like in 2026, there's just a lot being talked about, wealth transfer, wisdom transfer, succession
Mm,
planning, and there's a narrative out there between the different age groups, such as,
mm,
boomers not getting along with millennials and Gen X having
mm,
beef with. What can you say about
mm.
the succession planning process for you and kind of how, if we buy too much into what the world and society says, well, you're a millennial, you should have an issue with the way
Yeah.
baby boomers do things. But it sounds like the
Mm,
transition that you went through, it was just ordained by God. There was a lot of discernment. And even though people weren't suspecting, like, I wouldn't have maybe thought about the age. So talk to us about the succession process
yeah.
for you and maybe how some of those myths kind of get dispelled.
Well, I will tell you, I had a lot of loving friends who warned me when they heard I was going to be succeeding a 40-year founder of a ministry like this. They were like, John, nobody wants to be number two. Like, number two doesn't last long.
Mm.
And they were like, is this person really gonna like give up their power, their influence, their control. I mean, Eddie, our founder, had lived on the campus of the ministry since he was 27 years old, met his wife, raised a family. I mean, like, so deeply ingrained. And had it not been for the clarity of the call, to be honest, I probably would have like gotten scared off by
Mm-hmm.
it. Because I just didn't know. There were too many unknowns. But Eddie and I developed the beginnings of a very deep friendship during the course of the interview process that um wasn't the only way that, but it was a significant way of just being like, wow, I think that he would like let go
Mm-hmm.
if he trusts me. And so that was the beginning of it. But I think practically some things that to point to because it has gone exceedingly well, but it's still been hard. I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
like paint a picture that it's like, oh, it's not been difficult at all. It's like, no, it's been hard for him and it's been hard for me. But it's been like a hard that was so worth it for each other and worth it for the sake of the mission. But Eddie and his board, they started praying about his successor for the first time that it's like been that they can remember as record was 2006. I
Wow.
was a I was a junior, senior in high school at that moment. And so I remember the first time they told me that, like as part of the process, like once I was selected, I was like, man, they were praying for me like when I was in high school. Like that's
Mm.
nuts. Like, and so that Eddie and the board really became students of succession. They really wanted to do this well, wanted to honor the Lord in it, wanted to honor the fact that it's never about, despite the fact that ministries and organizations tend to gravitate towards becoming about the founder,
Mm-hmm.
just by its very nature. Eddie and the board were committed to really saying, no, this has always been God's place, God's mission. How do we help this succession really be a testimony to that? And so so then the last few things that I'll just mention about like how it went. Um, they knew that and believed, and I think it was totally accurate, that even if I had been selected, it would be best for the ministry if Eddie and I could coexist for a season to
Got it.
where it wouldn't be a hard stop. Okay, John's here, Eddie's gone, and he and his wife are moving away, and um, if they were like, if it's possible for you all to coexist, not like sharing leadership responsibilities, like John's coming in as CEO, but for Eddie to have a role because that would really help with me being able to get caught up on the ministry and get context, but also really giving comfort to our staff and our donor base, who, as we all know, especially with donors, they don't have all the information. And if the founder just leaves, oftentimes they fill in the story. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
I wonder how Eddie feels about John. I wonder,
Mm-hmm.
And so the fact that is now, he's still here leading the Wing Center, which was a new venture that the ranch started when I came to do outpatient counseling and retreats. It gave him a way to be part of the ministry, but separate enough that it didn't conflict with, well, is John really the CEO or what's going on? And so he's now been here. That was 2021. So we have 5 years that we've had the blessing of getting to do life with one another and give the staff and community the encouragement that, like, this isn't about either one of us. Like, this is about what God's doing, and I'm just here stewarding the role I have now. But it has been such a gift that God has also given us such a sweet friendship, which I know is also rare in the successor, kind of ranks of how it's done. So it's been a huge blessing in my life.
You just gave a mini class in succession, John, so I appreciate you, man. Friendship, grace,
Mm,
coexist, culture.
wow.
That's
Mm,
just a little bit of what I picked up. I'm sure there was a whole lot
wow.
more. So folks, you're gonna want to make sure you go back and listen to that part. That was some good stuff, John.
Mm,
Well, John, we've kind of teed it up the whole time. We've talked about the transition. We talked about your discernment, you praying about taking this role. And so now let's actually talk about it, Eagle
oh,
Ranch. What actually is, and I think we both even made a joke offline because even in passing over the years, I've heard people reference
Yeah.
Eagle Ranch, but it's like it was a best kept secret that I can't believe I didn't know about, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
would just kind of hear it in passing. So
Yes. The
what is
same for
Eagle
me.
Ranch and how do you all serve the families? Just tell us about it.
Yeah. So no, and yeah, it was the same for me in the halls of Chick-fil-A. It was like heard of Eagle Ranch, no idea exactly what it is. Simply put, Eagle Ranch exists to serve children and families in North Georgia, across the spectrum. So we started out as a more kind of traditional children's home for boys.
Mm,
So back in the 80s, were families who had a child, or boys specifically at that time, who was struggling in the home, just relationally. They were at odds and needed some level of separation, temporary separation. They would come to the ranch, and they would live here for a season. But the thing that's always been unique about the ranch, even in the earliest days, when we were more traditional in terms of a children's home, was that we were non-traditional in our family-centered approach.
mm,
We never accepted a child into our program if we didn't have the opportunity to work at some level with the family. And that could be a single mom, a single parent. It can be grandparents raising the child. Like, it doesn't matter what their family structure looked like, but we really wanted to say, hey, how can we help provide the environment for healing for the whole family
mm,
and not just fixate on a child's behavior, or their specific challenges, which are real and not imagined. But we believe that God has created this beautiful vision for family that, despite the brokenness we see all around us and that all of us experience at least at some level, it doesn't take away from the perfect redemptive design that he has for families. So first 15 years of the ranch, was centered on boys and their families, added girls in the early 2000s. And then over the last 5 years, since God has brought me, not because I came, but just it coincided with a lot of changes that have happened. We have had the opportunity to get to significantly expand our services and diversify. We have, because what we said is, really, when I came in, we had we had 450 calls from families in crisis that year. And
mm.
because of our model at the time, we were serving less than 5% of those based on the availability of, the homes we had and the specific program, just to kind of find the right fit. And so the challenge I had to the team when I came in was, you know, do we feel like our primary calling is to be a referral ministry? And you can imagine the reaction I got from the team of like, what? Like, no, you don't understand. We do that. I was like, I understand, but for 95% of people who call us today, this back in 21, we're essentially saying we can't help you.
Mm.
And so that combined with a number of other things allowed us to really say, hey, how do we serve families more at their point of need and not have this narrow sliver of people we can serve once it's pretty extreme. And so we now offer outpatient counseling. We have a day school program on campus. We have retreats, marriage retreats that we do on campus. So we really try to really want to be known here in this area as a full service children and family ministry for families at any level, whether they're saying, hey, we just want counseling to just reinforce and help us in our parenting, to families that are really struggling. And then the last thing I'll mention, we just started 2 months ago. By God's grace, we opened our first home on campus to serve large sibling groups that are in the foster system.
Mm.
We historically had not, all the families we worked with were private engagement. And I say private, it can make it sound like, oh, like people that, are wealthy and can afford all these kind of services. No, the answer
Mm.
is actually, um, we are able to provide the services, basically at whatever level the family can afford, thanks to our donor base. So 90% of our revenue comes from private donations. But we felt a calling to step into the foster care space because of how many sibling groups are being split apart,
Wow.
into different homes across the state. And so we have our first home that has 4 kids that are otherwise would be split up, and they are in a loving home while we work to help reunify them with their parents. And find their path to permanence. But so we've got a whole community of different kids and families that we work with, some outpatient and some who live with us for a season.
No, that's impact right there, John. My goodness. The 95% statistic, John, I could tell that you were burdened
Mm,
by that. What types, and you all have gone down the path of really addressing a lot of that. Is there maybe a top two or three? And obviously, every need is important.
yeah.
What do you find just the current climate that we live in? We've got cultural issues, we've got political issues. The enemy is really attacking families
Mm,
from multiple angles. Then you've got just the
mm,
geography.
yeah.
Like you were telling me offline, you're kind of uniquely centered in between about three or four counties. So you kind
Hmm.
of sit at the
Yeah.
intersection of several conversations. What's kind
Yeah.
of a top two or three, just, you as a leader, it's like, hey, we get a lot of calls, but these seem to be the ones that we really are. You could just tell there's almost a groaning from
Yeah.
the local neighborhoods of these are some real big issues.
Yeah, I'd say a couple that come to mind right away. One is no surprise, but the access to technology that kids have at this point. And what's interesting is we're living in this like paradox of we're actually parenting and supervising a lot more than any generation of parents.
Mm,
But what's funny is we are providing the least amount of supervision to our kids in their technology habits. I mean, I can't tell you how many
mm,
families that come to us and we ask them the question, has your child seen pornography? And they go, oh no, that definitely not. We're like, do they have a phone? And they're like, oh yeah. And we're like, okay, they probably have. Like it's like this parent like unaware of like, wait, what? Like, what are you talking about? Like, but I have like what? And then have social media? Yeah. And so really seeing the need for parents to almost probably like decrease the level of supervision in person. Kids actually need more of that, of this ability to like, hey, have time with my friends where I don't have parents that are like making all the rules for the game. And then less time where I have unfettered access to technology. That's something we're seeing consistently. And we ask families before we begin treatment, it's almost like, hey, let's do a like a technological family reset before we because it's now like very obvious in the research and it's intuitive when we think about it of like if I want to improve my family's mental health, like having less access to screens or
mm,
less that being less of a dominant part of our life is going to help. So that's one thing. The other thing I would say is that we're also living in this age of um, you know, like 10, definitely 15 or 20 years ago, that you would have still had this stigma against mental health resources.
mm,
We find that we don't have that now. In fact, especially with the Gen Z, with the kids, they are almost like self-diagnosing and are sort of wearing their diagnoses as pride. What's
mm,
interesting is that it's making parents, though, feel less equipped to know what to do with their child because they're like, well, I feel like I have to have a PhD in neuroscience to understand like what to do with my child. And it's like, okay, and especially as believers, and so many of the families that come to us are or profess faith, and we're like, listen, if God has put this child in your life, He has given you the agency to parent them with
mm,
kind authority. And that's like also clinically proven. That's the best kind of parenting is nurture and structure. Like and there's a lot of emphasis right now that's purely on connection, of saying that, hey, the most important thing is just connecting with your child. And the idea of correction has really fallen out of favor. And we see the value and the need for both. And there's a way to be that kind authority in your child's life. But we see parents really struggling to believe that's actually possible or good. So a lot of what we do is just helping to encourage parents to know and to give them practical tools of how to step into that kind of authority in their child's life.
mm. That's good, John. Man, you're so right on the technology. front, and you just hear different. Go out to any park or any school, and you could just hear the murmurs of these
Yeah.
conversations happening. So I just appreciate the work that you and Eagle Ranch are doing.
Oh, for
Uh,
sure.
well, John, before we close, and I don't want you to get in trouble. It's like we're not supposed to say that publicly yet. But John, if you can, we're in spring.
Yeah.
Is there anything exciting coming down the pipeline, say summer or fall, 2026? Is there
Yeah.
anything cool coming up that you can reveal
Yeah.
for Eagle Ranch that you're really excited about?
Yes. Well, I will invite everyone who's listening to come out to our annual Ranch Family Fest. So we started this just a couple of years ago. So we used to have a 5K that we did annually, and we're still doing the 5K, but we decided a few years ago, we're like, we hear so much feedback from people that go, kind of like you said, Jason, they're like, I've heard of this Eagle Ranch place. Some people who are like, I've driven by it, but I don't even know what it is because we're intentionally kind of secluded sanctuary of a campus. And so we said, we need to have give the community an excuse to come out and see what it is. And also realize like this isn't just for a very small sliver of people anymore. Now this is a resource for almost any family in
Hmm.
our community. And so we had about 1,300 people join us last year on campus for this family fest, which is basically like think of like a family block party. We've got a carnival atmosphere, we've got games and things on the field. So it's a Father's Day weekend. I'm gonna double check my date here and make sure, which I think this year is a little later in June. I think it's Saturday. Yes, Saturday, June 20th. So all morning, Saturday, June 20th. You should be able to go ahead and find information online. More is going to be coming out. We'll be posting about it from our Eagle Ranch social media accounts. But we would love to have you. And it's a free event. Family Fest is a totally free event. The 5K, there's a cost to the 5K as it supports the event itself, and it's a small fundraiser for us. But the main thing is we just love getting to love on families and be what we're primarily about, which is like wholehearted family time. And so we love getting to have that out on our beautiful property.
John, you said the key word party. So
You're there.
that's everything else is cherry on top, but I
That's
think just
awesome.
a part any sort of block party that just puts you in the headspace of all kinds of fun. So folks,
Love
make
it.
sure we'll have all of John and Eagle Ranch's information in the show notes, so you don't want to miss the summer block party. Well,
Hmm.
well, John, before we go, what's the best way for people to keep up with what Eagle Ranch is doing? You all are serving the community. We
Mhm.
love it when we have our nonprofits come on the show. But what's the best way for people to stay in touch with all the impact that you're making?
Yeah. Well, our website has information. Get involved. We've got a volunteer coordinator, Tara, who does a great job helping get folks plugged in and finding where their specific passion is and if there's an opportunity to get plugged in there. And then we do have Eagle Ranch has some social media accounts so you can find us and keep updated information there. But feel free just to come by. We'd love to meet you if you're interested in getting involved here at the ranch. We're here in Flowery Branch and want the community to know that this is a place for all of us. I've lost count of the number of close friends and even family that I have referred to our services here at the ranch. So this is truly something that's for all of us, and I need as a husband and father of three kids. I'm grateful to be part of this community that is helping me grow as a man, as a father, as a husband, all under the banner of the Lord and who He's made me to be. So yeah, so feel free to come out and reach out to me or anyone on our team. We look forward to seeing and meeting you.
Yeah, folks, you heard it from the executive director himself. John, I can't thank you enough. Listen, I could talk to John another 3 hours, but he's got some kingdom assignment, kingdom purpose to live out. So we gotta let him get back to it. But
Mhm.
John, seriously, man, thank you for coming on the show. Now the mystery of Eagle Ranch has been revealed,
So yes, there you
and
go.
uh and now I can take a ride up to Flowery Branch and encourage all of you all listening
Mm.
to do so as well. But John, thanks so much for hanging out with us here on the Fortified Life podcast.
No, thank you, Jason. Thanks for what you're doing too, man. Pleasure to meet you. And seriously, I'm hoping you'll be able to come up, man. I'd love to share the place with you in person.
Absolutely. Well, folks, that's all we have time for here on the show. We'll have all of John and Eagle Ranch's information in the show notes, fortifiedlifepodcast.com. Well, everybody, you know how we end things. Don't compartmentalize your faith and the marketplace. And from the boardroom to the bathroom, God is with you. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to the Fortified Life podcast at the Fortified Life on our YouTube channel and on your podcast platform of choice, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio. Make sure you subscribe to the Fortified Life. And if the show has blessed you, please leave us a positive review. We'll see you next time on the Fortified Life podcast.